It took exactly 7 moves and 90 seconds for a hotel, Maid, to publicly dismantle the man who controlled half of Chicago's skyline. His name was Alexander Reed, and tonight, inside the crystalline ballroom of a Sheraton Grand, he was king. This gala for Reed International was his court, a universe where his presence was a form of gravity, pulling power and ambition into his orbit. He moved through it with an unshakable confidence, viewing the world as a grand chessboard where he had never, not once, played a game he didn't completely control. Across the room, gliding through the glittering crowd like a ghost, was Maya Williams. Her reality was one of squeaking carts and the sharp scent of polish. Her greatest skill was the art of being invisible. While the kings of the world discussed stock options and summer homes, she made their world pristine, her uniform a cloak of anonymity. She wasn't a piece on the board. She was part of the scenery. The collision was sparked by a casual act of cruelty. An ambitious executive, hoping to amuse the king, spotted a decorative chessboard. "Alexander, a game," he called out. Alexander waved him off board. Then, the executive's eyes fell on Maya. A wicked idea sparked. "Better yet," he laughed, a sound dripping with condescension. "Let's make it interesting. How about a match against the staff?" He gestured to Maya. Every eye in the room turned, pinning her in a spotlight she never wanted. I don't think so," she murmured, her heart sinking. But the pressure from a room full of power was a silent command. Alexander, intrigued by the novelty, gave a slight nod. "It's just for fun." Reluctantly, she sat. The executives chuckled, a charming diversion for the evening. As she looked at the polished marble pieces, the scent of expensive perfume and quiet mockery filled her lungs. The game began. Alexander played with a lazy, careless arrogance. But Maya played with a memory. Knight to f3, bishop to c5. Her hands, usually hidden, moved with a forgotten, lethal grace. Alexander's smirk faltered. His eyes narrowed. The board was tilting. The air grew thick. Then it happened. Fast. Precise. Final. Queen to h4. "Checkmate," Maya said, her voice a quiet whisper that shattered the room's smug silence. A fork clattered onto a plate. The executive's jaw hung open. In that moment, Alexander Reed's face was a mask of pure, unfiltered shock. The king had just been toppled, not by a rival, but by a ghost he never even knew existed. But this single move was more than just a win. It was the first tremor of an earthquake that would shatter Alexander's world and launch him on an obsessive quest to understand the woman who had just checkmated his soul. Victory can be dangerous. For Maya Williams, that shocking win wasn't a celebration. It was a spotlight she had spent a decade trying to avoid. The next day, the air at Reed International was different. The deference shown to her was laced with a new, unnerving curiosity. The whispers followed her down the polished corridors like a trail of static. She just wanted to disappear back into the anonymity of her routine, but the ghost of that checkmate lingered in every room she cleaned. Every time a supervisor glanced her way, her stomach tightened. It was only a matter of time, she thought. A janitor doesn't embarrass the CEO in front of his entire court and keep her job. She wasn't waiting for a promotion. She was waiting for the axe to fall. Meanwhile, 48 floors above, Alexander Reed was a man possessed. Sleep offered no escape. He saw the board, the final, impossible position, burned onto the back of his eyelids. It wasn't the loss that haunted him. It was the how. The quiet confidence, the brutal efficiency, the ghost of a master's touch in the hands of a woman who cleaned his offices. It was a logical impossibility, a tear in the fabric of his well-ordered universe. And Alexander Reed did not tolerate logical impossibilities. His obsession began as a quiet hum and quickly crescendoed into a roar. He delegated his morning meetings, a move so uncharacteristic it sent ripples of panic through his executive team. Lit only by the cold blue light of his monitor in his sprawling, silent office, he began to dig. He started with the employee file. Maya Williams, age 32, hired 3 years ago. No infractions, no commendations. A blank slate. Useless. He moved to the internet, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Maya Williams, chess, Chicago. Nothing. Chicago chess, players female. Page after page of unfamiliar faces. He felt a rising frustration. It was as if she didn't exist outside the walls of this building. Then a thought struck him. A prodigy from years ago might not be found with a simple search. He changed tactics, diving into the deeper, dustier corners of the web. Old chess club forums, archived tournament records from the late 2000s, digital graveyards of forgotten triumphs. For 2 days, he found nothing. He was on the verge of giving up, of accepting it was just a fluke, a moment of bizarre luck. Then, on a defunct Joe City-style website for the Chicagoland Youth Chess Championship 2008, he found it. A single, grainy, poorly scanned photograph. A teenager with fire in her eyes and braces on her teeth, holding a comically large trophy. Her expression was one of fierce, unsmiling pride. The caption beneath read, Maya Williams, 16, makes it 3 years in a row. He fell down a rabbit hole. He found old articles from local papers. The Southside Queen, one headline called her. They spoke of a once-in-a-generation talent, a girl from the tough Englewood neighborhood who played with the ferocity and intuition of a seasoned grandmaster. She had been on a trajectory aimed at the stars, offered scholarships, sponsorships, and then, around age 17, nothing. The article stopped. The name vanished. The queen had abdicated her throne. While Alexander was unearthing her past, Maya was trying to bury it. At work, she kept her head down, her movements efficient, her face a neutral mask. But she could feel the change. An executive who had never acknowledged her existence now held the door for her, a strained smile on his face. In the break room, conversations would subtly halt when she walked in, resuming a beat too late when she left. It was worse than being ignored. It was being seen, but as a curiosity, a freak show. She was the janitor who checkmated the king. A novelty. It made her skin crawl. The confrontation she was dreading came on the 3rd day. Her shift was over. The evening cleaning crew was starting to arrive. She was in the staff locker room, a drab, functional space worlds away from the mahogany and glass of the upper floors when the door opened. It was Alexander Reed. He looked out of place, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the rows of metal lockers and worn-out benches. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. He didn't speak immediately. He just looked at her, his expression unreadable. There was no anger in his eyes. There was something else. Confusion. Respect. I couldn't sleep, he said finally, his voice quiet, stripped of its usual command. I ran the game through every engine I could find. Kasparov versus Topalov, 1999. You didn't just beat me. You recreated one of the most brilliant sacrificial combinations in the history of the game. Maya said nothing. She clutched the strap of her bag, her knuckles white. The employee file is a ghost, he continued, taking a step closer. But the internet remembers. The Southside Queen. Maya flinched, the old nickname hitting her like a physical blow. I don't play anymore, she said, her voice tight. That was a different person. A different life. Why did you stop? He asked, his curiosity genuine, not accusatory. It stopped being a game, she said, a universe of pain in those 5 words. It became a cage. The pressure, the expectations, everyone wanting a piece of you. I just walked away. I wanted to be invisible. And I was. Until the other night. She looked at him, her eyes pleading. Please. I just want my job. I just want to be left alone. Alexander was silent for a long moment, processing the weight of her confession. The powerful CEO, the man who could buy and sell companies with a single phone call, looked humbled. He wasn't here to fire her. He was here as a student. I won't tell anyone, he said, and she knew he meant it. But my request isn't from a CEO to an employee. It's from one player to another. A better one. He paused. Play me again. No audience. No executives. Just a game. In the boardroom. After everyone has gone home. She should have said no. Every instinct for self-preservation screamed at her to refuse, to retreat back into the shadows. But as he spoke, she felt a flicker of something she thought was long dead. The thrill. The pure, unadulterated love for the 64 squares. The silent language she spoke better than any other. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. That night, the dynamic of their world was inverted. After midnight, Maya let herself into the great, silent boardroom on the 48th floor. The vast table was a sea of polished wood, reflecting the city lights like a dark, still lake. Alexander was already there, a simple wooden chessboard set up in the middle. The expensive marble set from the gala was gone. This was different. This was serious. They didn't speak. There was no need. The only sound was the soft, weighted click of the pieces on the wood as they began to play. The game unfolded like a conversation, a complex dialogue of strategy and intent. He played with a newfound caution, his moves thoughtful, probing. She played with her soul, her instincts flowing freely in the safe silence of the empty room. She won, of course, but it was a longer, more intricate battle. A true contest. It became their ritual. 2 or 3 times a week, after the building had fallen silent, the janitor and the CEO would meet over a chessboard. They rarely spoke of anything but the game itself. Yet, in that shared silence, a strange and profound connection began to form. It wasn't friendship, not yet. It was a mutual respect, a recognition of the mind opposite them. For Maya, it was a slow reawakening of a part of herself she thought she had buried forever. For Alexander, it was a revelation. He was discovering that the most valuable assets in his empire weren't on the balance sheet. Sometimes, they were the people you never thought to look at. This fragile, unspoken alliance was a bubble of quiet respect in a world of noise. But in the cutthroat corridors of corporate Chicago, secrets have a way of getting out, and bubbles are made to be burst. The whispers started as a trickle and became a flood. Secrets, especially ones as juicy as this, have a short lifespan in a corporate environment. The late-night lights seen in the boardroom, a security guard's offhand comment, Alexander's uncharacteristic changes in schedule, it all coalesced into a single, tantalizing narrative. The CEO was having secret meetings with the janitor. The why was left to the salacious imaginations of the staff, and the speculation was far more colorful than the truth. For Maya, the change was immediate and chilling. The feigned respect of the first few days curdled into something uglier. It was a campaign of 1,000 tiny cuts. She'd walk into the staff break room to grab a coffee, and a lively conversation would instantly die, replaced by an awkward, heavy silence until she left. One afternoon, a senior analyst, a man she'd seen Alexander speak with on occasion, accidentally spilled a latte on the floor just as she was passing with her cart. "Oh, terribly sorry," he'd said, not looking at her. "But I suppose that's what you're here for." The snickers from his colleagues felt like tiny shards of glass. She endured it with a quiet, stoic dignity that infuriated them even more. She did her job, her face an unreadable mask, but inside, the old anxieties were stirring. This was the cage she had escaped, rebuilt with new bars of judgment and scorn. Her work, once a refuge of invisibility, was now a daily gauntlet of passive aggression. She found herself retreating further inward, her interactions with Alexander in the silent boardroom becoming the only time she felt truly seen for who she was, not what she was. Unbeknownst to her, Alexander was not only aware of the whispers, he was preparing to go to war with them. He sat in a pre-meeting for the quarterly board review, listening to his rival, Marcus Thorne, a slick executive with a predatory smile, subtly poison the well. "Some of us are concerned, Alexander," Marcus began, his tone dripping with false concern. "This new hobby of yours, the late nights, the unusual company, it's becoming a distraction. The optics are frankly terrible." The other board members shifted uncomfortably. Marcus was voicing what they were all thinking. Alexander let the accusation hang in the air, a faint, unreadable smile on his face. He waited a beat, letting the tension build. Then, he leaned forward, his calm a stark contrast to Marcus's agitation. "You're right, Marcus," he said, his voice deceptively mild. "I have been distracted." The board members leaned in. I've been distracted by the staggering realization that we are sitting on a mountain of untapped human potential, and we are too blind to see it. With a click of his remote, the large screen behind him, usually reserved for financial projections, flickered to life. It showed a picture he'd taken on his phone, a slightly blurry but vibrant shot of a community center basement. Kids of all races and backgrounds were huddled around worn-out chessboards, their faces a mixture of intense concentration and joy. In the center of it all, leaning over a board and explaining a move to a young girl, was Maya. "This is the Southside Community Chess Club," Alexander announced, his voice now filled with a passion the board had never heard before. "It's run by volunteers. It operates on a shoestring budget, and it is producing some of the sharpest young minds in this city." He looked directly at Marcus. "You're worried about optics? Let's talk about optics. What are the optics of Reed International, a pillar of the Chicago business community, pouring millions into marketing campaigns, while a place like this is struggling to buy new chess clocks?" He pivoted, his voice rising, commanding the room. He wasn't just defending himself. He was launching an offensive. He laid out a meticulously planned proposal, not for a simple donation, but for a fully fledged corporate social responsibility initiative, the Reed Youth Chess Initiative. He used their own language against them: brand enhancement, community engagement, positive media cycles, talent pipeline development. He transformed the petty gossip about him and Maya into a powerful, strategic, and undeniable business case. By the time he was done, the mood in the room had shifted from suspicion to calculated greed. He hadn't just deflected the attack. He had co-opted their cynicism and bent it to his will. That evening, he didn't wait for their midnight meeting. He found her as she was packing up her cart. He felt a surge of protective anger, seeing the weariness in her eyes, a shadow that hadn't been there a few weeks ago. He knew what she was enduring. He told her about his plan for the initiative, about how her example had inspired it. She was stunned into silence, unable to process the scale of his vision. "But that's not all," he said, his expression serious. He slid a piece of paper onto the top of her cart. It was a registration form for the Chicago Open, one of the most prestigious chess tournaments in the Midwest. In the two competitor slots, he had written both their names. Maya stared at it as if it were a venomous snake. All the air left her lungs. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Absolutely not. I can't. I won't." "Why not? You saw what happened to me. You read the articles." Her voice cracked, the carefully constructed walls crumbling. "The pressure, the spotlight, it breaks people. It broke me. I'm not that person anymore. I will not be put back in that cage." "This is different," he insisted, his voice gentle but firm. "You wouldn't be playing for them. You wouldn't be playing for a trophy." He gestured vaguely in the direction of the community center. "You'd be playing for those kids, to show them that it doesn't matter where you come from, to show them that a pawn that makes it to the other side of the board can become a queen, to show all these people who whisper in the hallways what real power looks like." He was holding up a mirror, and in it, she didn't see a janitor. She saw the girl with fire in her eyes, holding a trophy. She saw the quiet master who dismantled a CEO in a dozen moves. She saw the patient teacher who could light up a child's face with a simple game. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt a spark. Her hand trembled as she reached for the pen he was holding out. The form was signed. The gauntlet was thrown. They were no longer just playing a game. They were fighting a battle. And the arena was about to be the biggest chess tournament in the city. The grand ballroom of the Palmer House Hilton hummed with a unique frequency, the nervous energy of 100 brilliant minds. It was a sea of blazers, focused expressions, and the quiet, rhythmic tapping of chess clocks. The air smelled of old wood, hotel coffee, and raw ambition. This was the Chicago Open, a hallowed ground for the Midwest chess elite. Into this world walked Maya Williams. She wore her work-issued janitor's jacket over a simple black turtleneck. It wasn't a statement. It was just what she had. But in this room, it was a suit of armor and a declaration of war. Heads turned. Whispers followed her as she found her assigned table. They weren't the cruel, dismissive whispers of the office. These were different, curious, skeptical, tinged with a grudging respect born from the rumors that had preceded her. The CEO's prodigy, the janitor grandmaster. They were here to see if the legend was real. Alexander was already there, at a different table across the room. He caught her eye and gave her a subtle, encouraging nod. He was in his element, yet he seemed secondary to the main event. Today he was not the king. He was merely a player. The spotlight was on Maya. Her first match was against a cocky university champion who barely made eye contact, dismissing her with a flick of his eyes over her jacket. He played a fast, aggressive opening, trying to overwhelm her. Maya met his aggression with a strange, silent calm. She let him punch himself out, absorbing his attacks with quiet, economical moves, creating a web of positional traps. On move 27, he made a single, impatient pawn push. It was the mistake she had been waiting for. Her pieces descended with the swift, merciless precision of a hawk, and 10 moves later, he was staring at an unwinnable endgame. He tipped over his king with a sigh of disgust, never meeting her gaze. One down. The early rounds passed in a montage of quiet victories. A fast-talking club player who tried to psyche her out with constant chatter. She crushed him in under 20 moves. A veteran player known for his grinding, defensive style. She sacrificed a rook for a blistering attack he never saw coming. With each win, the atmosphere around her table shifted. The skepticism melted away, replaced by awe. Spectators began to gather, not to gawk at the novelty, but to study the master at work. They saw it now, the deep, intuitive understanding of the board, the fearless creativity, the utter lack of wasted motion. They were witnessing the return of the South Side Queen. Meanwhile, Alexander was on his own journey. He played well, his focus intense. But something had changed in him. He won his first few matches, but the fire and brimstone desire to dominate was gone, replaced by a deep, intellectual appreciation for the contest itself. Between his own games, he would find a quiet spot where he could watch Maya's board. He saw the way she controlled the tempo, the way she exuded a quiet confidence that unnerved her opponents. He felt a sense of pride that was entirely new to him. It was not for his own success, but for hers. In the quarterfinals, he faced a rising star, a young international master. It was a brilliant, hard-fought game, a duel of equals. But in the end, Alexander made a small miscalculation, and the younger player capitalized on it ruthlessly. He was out. For the old Alexander, this would have been a source of immense frustration. But as he shook his opponent's hand, he smiled a genuine, unforced smile. He felt no anger. His tournament was over, but the real story was still unfolding. He took his place among the spectators, his eyes fixed on Maya's semifinal match. This was the true test. Her opponent was Anatoly Petrov, a grizzled Russian émigré and a former Soviet champion, a grandmaster known for his psychological warfare and his suffocating boa constrictor style. The air around their table was electric. The room was silent, save for the soft clicks of the clock. Time itself seemed to slow down. Petrov began with a verbal jab. "I have heard of you," he rumbled, his voice a low growl. "The little cleaning lady who got lucky. Your luck runs out today." Maya didn't flinch. She didn't even look at him. Her entire universe had shrunk to the 64 squares in front of her. She looked at the pieces not as wood, but as a field of pure energy, of branching possibilities. Her mind was a silent, calm ocean. The game was a masterpiece of tension. Petrov squeezed, applying relentless pressure, trying to suffocate her position. He was a python, and she was a mongoose. For every threat he created, she found a single, perfect countermove. For every trap he set, she sidestepped with an unnerving prescience. The crowd watched, breathless. They were seeing a clash of two fundamentally different philosophies. Petrov's rigid, technical power versus Maya's fluid, intuitive genius. The turning point came hours into the match. The pieces were thinned, the position fiendishly complex. Petrov, growing frustrated by her resilience, made a move that was strong, but tinged with impatience. It was an almost imperceptible flaw, a crack in the foundation so small that 99% of players would have missed it. Maya saw it. Her hand hovered over a bishop. It was a quiet move, a non-obvious move that seemed to do nothing. Petrov smirked. He saw it as a sign of weakness, of her crumbling under the pressure. He launched what he believed was the final, winning attack, and walked right in her trap. Her quiet bishop move had set up a forced sequence, a stunning combination that was 5 moves deep. Her next move was a knight's sacrifice. Petrov's eyes widened. The smirk vanished. He saw it now all at once. The beautiful, terrible, inescapable net she had woven. He was lost. 3 moves later, Maya slid her queen across the board. "Checkmate," she said. A stunned silence hung in the ballroom. Then a single sound cut through it, the sharp, distinct sound of one person clapping. The camera of the mind panned through the crowd to find Alexander Reed. He was on his feet, a look of pure, unadulterated pride on his face, applauding her victory for the whole room to see. His applause was a signal. The spell was broken. A few others joined in, then a dozen. Then the entire room erupted in a standing ovation, a wave of respect and admiration washing over the woman in the janitor's jacket. Maya looked up, her gaze sweeping past the crowd, past the defeated grandmaster, and found Alexander's eyes. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a shared moment of triumph. The final piece had fallen, the match was won, and the crowd was finally on her side. But the game for Maya's future was just beginning, and the most important move was yet to be played, far away from any chessboard. Winning the trophy is one thing. Winning your future is everything. The post-tournament banquet was a cacophony of clinking glasses, forced laughter, and naked opportunism. The victory had transformed Maya from a curiosity into a commodity. Suddenly, she was no longer the janitor. She was the queen of the South Side, a ready-made, feel-good story for a city that loved them. She was swarmed. A slick local politician, Councillor Davies, threw a heavy arm around her shoulders, pulling her into a tight orbit for a press photo. "An inspiration," he boomed, his voice projecting for the cameras. "Maya is a testament to the American dream, proof that with a little grit, anyone in this great city can pull themselves up by their bootstraps." He squeezed her shoulder, a gesture of ownership. The old Maya would have frozen, endured it, and vanished as soon as possible. But the woman who had faced down Anatoly Petrov was different. She subtly but firmly extricated herself from his grasp. She looked the politician directly in the eye, her voice quiet but carrying an undeniable weight. "Thank you, counselor," she said, her tone level. "But my story isn't about bootstraps. It's about a community that supported me, and it's not for sale." The politician's smile faltered, his face a mask of confusion. He was dismissed, not with anger, but with an integrity so profound he had no response. She politely excused herself from the circle of sharks, leaving them in a wake of stunned silence. Alexander watched it all from a distance, a proud smile gracing his lips. He found her a few minutes later on a quiet, windswept balcony overlooking the glittering expanse of Millennium Park. The noise of the banquet was a dull roar behind them. "You handled them better than my corporate lawyers could have," he said, joining her at the railing. She gave a small, weary smile. "I'm tired of being a pawn in other people's games." "Good," he said, "because I'm not here to offer you a sponsorship. I'm not here to put the Reed International logo on your jacket." He slid a thick folder across the cool stone of the railing. It wasn't a check. It was a business proposal, a charter for a nonprofit organization. "What you do at that community center," he said, his voice stripped of all its CEO authority, filled only with sincerity, "teaching those kids, giving them a language to understand the world, that's the real grandmaster level stuff. The tournament was just a way to get a spotlight on what really matters." He tapped the folder. "The Reed Youth Chess Initiative. It's funded for the next 10 years. It has a board, a mission statement, and a budget. The only thing it's missing is a director." He looked at her, his eyes serious. "I don't want to fund you, Maya. I want to hire you. Run it. Build it however you see fit. No interference. It's yours." Tears welled in Maya's eyes. It wasn't charity. It wasn't a reward. It was a recognition of her true worth. Not as a player, but as a builder. A leader. 6 months later, The basement of the Southside Community Center was unrecognizable. The dim lighting was gone, replaced by bright, clean fixtures. The mismatched, broken tables were replaced with dozens of sturdy new ones, each with a beautiful wooden chessboard and a new clock. The air, once musty, was now alive with the vibrant energy of 50 children laughing, strategizing, and learning. And at the center of it all was Maya. She moved through the room not with the quiet invisibility of a janitor, but with the confident, purposeful grace of a director. She knelt to help a young boy see a fork, praised a teenage girl for finding a difficult defensive move, and settled a dispute with the calm authority of a beloved teacher. She was home. Alexander visited often, never with a camera crew or a press release. He came alone, dressed in jeans and a sweater, just to watch. Today, he approached her as the last of the kids were leaving. "They're getting good," he said, nodding to a young girl who was proudly explaining her winning combination to her mother. "They have a good teacher," Maya replied with a smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, heavy object wrapped in velvet. He placed it in her palm. She unwrapped it. It was a single chess piece, carved from rich, dark walnut, weighted and felted at the bottom. It was a queen. "Every kingdom needs one," he said simply. Maya closed her hand around the smooth, powerful lines of the piece. She looked from the queen in her hand to the room that was now her kingdom, filled with the potential of the next generation. She looked at Alexander, her eyes conveying a gratitude that words could never capture. The trophy from the Chicago Open sat on a shelf in her small office, already gathering a thin layer of dust. It was a relic of an old game. The real game, the one that mattered, was just beginning. Maya's story proves that your circumstances don't define your destiny. Your choices do. She found her power not in defeating a king, but in lifting up pawns. If her journey inspired you, you won't want to miss our next video, where we explore the incredible true story of a high school dropout who became a leading astrophysicist. Click the video on your screen right now to continue the inspiration.